Sarah, do you
Yep.
think someone else is coming on, or what's the?
Let's see. It shows that there's 6 of us on here. Dennis, me, Dan, Edith, Jim, and Gary Kokersberger.
Oh, Gary's coming, or he is on?
I believe he's
Here,
with
Hi,
us.
Gary.
voice only.
Oh, okay.
Jim, can we hear you?
Jim sent an email that said he'd be able to join, but probably wouldn't be able to say anything. So I'm pretty
okay.
sure he can hear us all, but I don't think he'll be able to comment. But Jim, I don't know if you have a keyboard or not, but if you do, there is a chat window if you'd like to send anything. But just to tell you guys, in his email, he did say that if he wasn't able to comment or participate verbally, he could send some comments via email later.
Oh, okay. But he can hear us, can he, or?
I think so.
Okay. We got Pixel or something here.
Yeah, that's me. I can't change my name. That's the name of my phone.
That's what we'll call you, right?
Yeah, Pixel 4 XL, right?
Well, we might as well get started. It looks like the usual people are here. Hopefully you've been outside enjoying this weather. This has been something else. I understand we broke the record today and we might break it tomorrow.
Wow.
Boy.
I think you all got the information from the meeting that, the trip that we took 3 weeks ago to some of the parks and made some comments about some of the trees and also offered some suggestions. I don't know if anyone has any reaction. I thank both Dan and Edith for the comments and writing up the information. Oops.
Oh, I was just going to say, I have it. If you'd like me to share the screen, I can pull it up while you talk about it, if you wanted to go through it at all.
I didn't know, was there anything you wanted to go through or any comments from anyone? I think both visitations we made, there's been some very good suggestions. I hope they're being taken seriously and some things will be done about them.
Actually, I was at Outhouse Park a few days ago, and the plastic had been removed from around some of the trees.
Oh, okay.
So that was
Good.
So it looks
was-
like some of the suggestions have been taken seriously.
Okay.
Quite a number of the trees had that removed. So on the way.
That's
Yeah,
good to-
so, when you shared the summary, I forwarded it right to Samantha Pierce and Troy Bennett and Doug Finch. So Sam and Troy, they do parks, and then Doug's the town manager, and this stuff's important to him too. So they talk about it at their meetings and, make a plan for when they can address it. And I know they really appreciate all the feedback, because I know I've said it 100 times, we don't have any expert tree people. We just have people who love trees. So
Well, there's Dan now. So here we are.
yeah. So I
noticed
definitely pass it along, and they are taking it seriously. Whether or not, they can get to everything right away, I don't know. But yeah, they've read it, they see it, and they're going to try and address everything.
Oh, good.
Well,
I
can
see a
that.
couple trees that have been removed from town hall.
I think there were some dead ones.
Yes.
Any other suggestions or any comments about the report? All right, the other thing that I was going to ask, see how you feel about it. I thought we could skip the meeting for December and the meeting in January and start up again in February. At the February meeting, we could plan for the season 2021. We visited most places. We still have one cemetery and I think about 3 or 4 parks to go to make some comments about those. And also, make some suggestions for tree replacement, doing an inventory. Dan made a good suggestion about making a list of trees that are available not only to town facilities, but the town residents. So I don't know, how do you feel about skipping December and January?
I only had one question about it, and I don't think it really will make too much of a difference. We talked about what if anything you want to do in honor of like Arbor Day and Earth Day. They come up in April. Considering that COVID will probably still be a reality, we probably can't plan any really big events. So whatever we plan probably won't take as long to prepare. But just, if we don't meet until February, then we only have maybe 2 to 3 meetings tops to plan any kind of event. Does that matter? I mean, it might not. I just wanted to mention it.
Well, if we get into a situation where there's more planning that needs to be done, couldn't we do bi-monthly meetings during that time? Maybe, and that would increase the amount of time.
Oh, yeah. So go ahead and pause for the winter, but then maybe start in February and decide if we need a couple meetings each month, or maybe in March have 2 meetings or something.
Maybe, yeah, increase the meetings because you get closer to that time when things get active.
Yeah, that's a good idea. That's a good idea because there are a number of things once spring rolls around that we could be involved in.
Mhm.
Yeah, and once a month may not be adequate.
Right.
Mhm. One of the things we could act on without meeting, just sending things to poor Sarah, is if we would start to generate the list of trees that we might recommend.
Mhm.
That's just a piece of paper, and we could compile that. It might be nice to have that to put in the town newsletter for Arbor Day as a contribution to residents.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, I don't mind working on things in the winter. That's probably my slower time, actually. I have a lot more time during the winter. Of course, I get busy in the spring, but a lot of paperwork type things, planning could be done during the winter. And you don't necessarily, I don't believe, have to have meetings, but correspondence through email.
Right. I think we could come up with a really good list. I think not only the name of the trees, but maybe why they would be a good choice, what they're adapted to. As an addendum, I think our residents would like that too, and it would be helpful if we're starting in to replace trees in the parks or on the town property.
I do have some ideas of how to plant open spaces. Like many of the parks were open spaces. And I have some ideas on how to plant, kind of a best management practice for planting. I think grouping or planting in threes, you create kind of an oasis or an island where the trees, they're communal, so they associate with each other and they share sugars and share microbes, beneficials.
Right.
So planting them in groups of 3, and aesthetically that's more pleasing. And then putting mulch all the way around that. So you're creating, not only that, you're reducing soil temperatures, you're protecting moisture loss, and you're rehabilitating the soil in that area, because many of the park sites have soil difficulties, fill, or have never been very good soils.
Yeah.
So, I think that's a possibility, is instead of kind of, I notice on a lot of the parks, planting has not been necessarily, that I can tell, except for maybe Outhouse, has not necessarily been planned. It's like, we got a tree, plant it there. I don't know if that's the best approach. Trees like to associate with each other in groupings, and they don't do well planted up in a desert, by themselves.
Mhm.
So, and that would also, mulching in threes would allow more of the root system, of the root drip line, to be under mulch, to take advantage of that. And also would create a balance between open, a positive space, negative space. It would be more pleasing. It would allow people then to, as these trees mature, to walk into that little mini grouping, to cool off. Maybe there's a bench there. But I think that would be a good approach to look into, a possibility.
That's a
Yeah.
very good idea. Dan, you want to start to generate something and pass it on to the rest and we can add things to it or?
Of like a planting suggestion?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay, all right.
Well,
I could do the work on that.
and also just to prevent you having to do all the work, Dan, Dennis, would it be a good idea to, after this meeting, when I send out a little summary, to ask for that kind of stuff from anyone who has the knowledge?
sure. That's a
And
good
then we
idea.
can kind of,
Yeah,
Let-
most of this stuff that I'm telling you is you wouldn't really find in a book. It's based on my experience.
yeah.
You know, there's many different ways to plant parks, but I've seen what works and what doesn't. And so this is kind of based on my experience. So I think,
I
you know,
just don't want to take advantage of you
no,
because
I
you've
don't
offered
mind. I
so
think,
much.
no, I don't mind at all. I think it's prudent to get lots of different opinions and from a lot of people. But yeah, from experts and people that may have different viewpoints. But I'm just offering something that is based on my experience. I don't know the
Yeah, that sounds
protocol
like
anywhere.
an excellent newsletter article right there. I mean, so that's
I agree.
that's a really good thing. Our
Agree too.
residents would enjoy knowing that. You
Yeah.
have so much information. It's great to share it.
And
Oh,
I
yeah.
do, I agree with Edith. I think that'd be a perfect newsletter article for April.
Yeah.
I think
Okay.
you're right. And to piggyback on what you were saying, Sarah, you know, again, we don't know whether we can meet for Arbor Day or whatever, but we do need to plan something in February. I was hoping, you know, for many, many years I had the Love My Park Day,
Mm-hmm.
where we had the public come in and we mulched the trees and did those types of things. I would assume that we probably could still do something like that, even though if the coronavirus is still in effect or.
I think we could do something. It's just, and I don't know, you know, we can't do anything with a bunch of people, but, you know, definitely like if we had one or two parks maybe, and we get small groups of people to work at each one, or, I mean, I'm guessing we probably can do something, plant a tree, you know, or a combination. But I just didn't want to, you know, it just needs to be said.
Well,
Yeah.
in the past, we always took either Blue Heron or Outhouse or both of them, depending on how many people volunteered. One year we were able to do all the trees at Blue Heron because we had enough volunteers, and also do some of them at Outhouse. So, you know, that kind of depends on the number of volunteers.
Yeah.
why don't
Well,
I-
and the beauty of this is it is outside and it's easy to space out quite a lot.
Right. Yeah, I think we could still do something like that. I like Dan's idea of maybe starting in February, having two meetings. I don't have a calendar with me, but about the second Monday and
I do.
2 weeks after that or something, or,
Yeah, just to, and just to knock things up for the new year, knock things out, you know, get it rolled out, and then maybe go from there if you need two meetings, or maybe 1 month you need more if you're planning something, you know.
sounds good. Plus, you know,
Yeah.
we can get some information in the newsletter for volunteers if we do have the Love My Park Day. I think in the past, we always had that like the 1st of May or something, the first Saturday in May.
We spoke a little last month about sponsoring trees, residents sponsoring trees
Oh,
or
yeah.
adopting trees, or I wonder if that's something which could also be rolled out as part of this listing, or what folks' thoughts were. What was the idea that those would be trees that would go into these open spaces in the parks, if people were to pony up and help subsidize some of the planting?
Yeah, you know, I mean, after the parks, the staff, you know, goes through and removes the dead trees in some of the parks and gets ready to think about what we're going to do to replace them. You know, we'll have spots where we know we want trees. I think I told you guys about the bench program that the Parks and Recreation Committee started, where someone basically pays for the bench, but it's so that they can have a plaque on it. you know, in honor of someone or in memory of someone. I don't see why we couldn't do the same thing with trees.
Many years ago, the Park and Recreation Committee came up with a list of, I don't know, 3 or 4 types of trees and how much they would cost, and people could purchase one of those, and in some cases purchase a plaque for them.
Oh, so we've actually
Um,
done this before.
So we have done it. It was kind of put on the back burner or something, but yeah, at Ononda, there's probably 4 or 5 trees that are dedicated to someone. But that might be something that's added with the benches.
You know, maybe it would be worth talking to the Parks and Rec Committee too. They might want to help with it.
Sure, I'm sure they would.
Would they,
Have they been meeting, Sarah?
Yeah, I think there were a couple of meetings over the summer. They didn't meet, but they met the last couple of months.
Okay.
another question, would they want input as to a tree list, recommended list? Because this would be adopted probably by the town, right? Am
Yeah,
to
I don't
assume
know
that?
how to work, but I mean, whatever you guys come up with, you know, once we'd agreed that it's a pretty good list and it's ready to go, I'll talk to Sam, and she's our parks coordinator, and Doug, and see what they want to do with it. It may not need to be adopted. I don't know. But I know that they would definitely use it, you know, when they go to buy trees for the parks. But then also I'm envisioning this being something we can share and the public can use it too, or hoping anyway.
Yes, I think it would be really valuable for the residents. We are trying to encourage everybody to plant trees, and the climate challenge, I think they're calling it. We need to do that, and the more success they have, the better off all of us are, not just in the parks.
Dan, can I ask you, I don't know, is that something you've done with other towns where they adopt a list, or?
Yeah, well, I've come across that with other towns. They do have, yeah, very strict guidelines on which trees they can plant under right-of-ways. And there's many different categories of trees that fit different situations. That's why, you know, not necessarily a tree that would be recommended for the town, say by the side of a sidewalk, would be recommended for a homeowner, because there's certain requirements that have to be met if you plant a tree near infrastructure, such as it has to be limbed up so no one hits their head. They have to get snow removal equipment under it. And these sort of, there's a lot of different things to consider when you're planting for town space as opposed to a homeowner space. So you could further break out a list, you know, recommended for homeowners, take a look at these trees. But I think that the town really should come up with a list of trees. Just about any town that I've had contact with has that list, and you know, they'll provide you with that list, town, city, and they don't vary from that list unless they have, you know, they consent and they look at the list and they update it. They really stick to that, because usually a lot of thought and consideration is put into that, and I think it's the right way to go, to adopt a recommended list and then adhere to it.
Should we generate a list, and then Sarah, you want to check on adopting what the procedure is for having something like that adopted?
Yeah, I mean, I know what the procedure would be, but sometimes our town board needs a lot more time to consider stuff like that.
You are so tactful.
Okay.
Just because, you know, if it's adopted by the town board, you know, it becomes so, you know, then it's not subjective anymore. And then it's like, we must do this. And so
It's codified.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, I get what you're saying and I agree with you, but they might come back and say, well, why do we need to do this? Why do we need to do this now? You know, what? And just, there'll be a lot of questions. So I don't know. I think at first having the list as our unofficial official list is a good first step, and then give it some time and, you know, reconsider making it more official down the road. Because it kind of also goes along the lines of like when we originally started this group and we're talking about trying to get that grant, and we would have had to do an ordinance, a tree ordinance. And that kind of, I think, included stuff like what you were talking about. And there was a little bit of pushback. Well, why do we need that? You know, can't we just have a volunteer group? So
Yes.
I
is
think
this
it just
going to
takes
cost
some
money?
time.
It's always the first question. Yes.
Oh, yeah, that too. But I definitely think that it's the right time for having our group, and they're definitely seeing the benefits of the group already with all the good suggestions. So I don't think that would never happen. I think now's a good time to start talking about it. I just think we have to be patient.
Right,
I
so I
got
think
you.
it's a good idea to generate a list and then, decide what's going to happen after that.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. And I think that the list should be further delineated into where sites, trees for particular sites.
Yeah, that's
I
helpful.
agree there, yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Anything
So-
else with that? Sarah, did you find a calendar?
I did. And then I closed it. Sorry. Yeah. So in February, the second Monday is February 8th. The only thing, and I'm glad we talked about this because when I pull up the calendar, I'm reminded that February is one of the months where the town board meetings always moved because President's Day falls on the third Monday. So I think the town board is likely to meet on February 8th, which doesn't mean we can't meet. It just means that someone would have to choose between our meeting and the town board meeting. And I don't know if we want to do that or move it to like a Wednesday instead, like we did, what was it, last month?
Yeah, I don't think we should meet on the same time that the town board does. Well, they'll have a calendar shortly or? for
It's
2021?
usually, they usually move it earlier in the month. So they usually will do the second Monday instead, which would be conflicting with our typical schedule for this group. So, I mean, the third Monday is a holiday. It's President's Day. So you
What's the
could,
first, what's the first Monday?
the first Monday is February 1st.
Right.
It actually falls on the 1st. So yeah, you could consider, I don't think there's anything else that usually would fall on that day. So you could do
Right, so-
that, or you could do the same week we usually do and just move it to like the Wednesday, which is a 10th.
How about the rest of you? Any preference?
Monday's fine with me. If you want to start it off on the 1st.
Monday is usually more open for me. I sometimes have choir rehearsals on Wednesday nights, and Wednesday evenings. So that's what you get for playing. Learn to put two notes together. Your life is never your own.
That's okay too, right?
Okay.
Do you want to meet the first and then, what'd you say, what's a holiday that month? Sarah?
February 15th is President's Day.
So then the other Monday would be the 22nd?
Yes, that's the only other possible day that they would switch the town board meeting to.
Oh,
They would
okay.
either go 1 month early or 1 month late, but usually they do not 1 month, 1 week early or 1 week late, but usually they go early.
Okay.
Well, when we meet on the 1st, we'd better know, right, by then? And
Yeah,
we
they'll
could-
set the schedule in December, so we'll know.
So why don't we plan on the first
Mhm.
and then determine the other Monday after that?
Okay.
That seems good.
And
Okay.
then when's Easter? Easter's not till April. So the March meetings could go back to the normal schedule and be the 8th. And then
Right.
that would still leave time for a second meeting in March if you wanted to do that.
That makes sense.
Okay, So are we shelving then, the tree inventory, or are we gonna be working on that throughout the
So,
winter?
oh,
Or not inventory, I'm sorry, recommended planting list.
I think we start
Okay.
that now.
Yeah, I think we start in on it.
Okay.
Mhm.
Dan, because a lot of that falls on you, what can we do to support that?
Any kind of ideas, I would look into, well, for instance, Durr's book. Are you familiar with Durr's?
I'm
Uh,
not.
Okay, I can get that information in an email. And I would recommend that, you look into the different types of, species that, you might like, and then bring it to the table. We'll discuss it, and I'll give my input. Everyone can give their input on what they think about these trees and what sites they could thrive in or not. And we could go from there. Just discuss. Maybe we set up categories: shade trees, understory trees, screening trees, wildlife interest, trees with wildlife interest. Maybe we go from there. Maybe we set up categories first of what type of tree and their purpose. What is their purpose going to be? Is it going to be for wildlife? Is it going to be for shade? Is it going to be for screening? That sort of thing. And then from there, we can then fill out the types of species that and genera that we want to include.
Maybe a paragraph on just tree acquisition, not getting too specific as far as suppliers, but just some things to look out for when buying trees. For the
Sure,
residents.
yeah, there's a lot of nurseries in, well, there's a lot of wholesale nurseries in Ohio, some in Pennsylvania, and of course the ones way out west in Oregon, which I don't recommend. I recommend buying trees more to the northern climate because they're more adapted to our weather patterns. But it would depend on if you're going to buy quantity or not. You can get you have a lot of things that are open, a lot of options. I wouldn't necessarily limit to the local nurseries because they usually purchase what sells, and so they tend to have very limited selection. And some of those trees may work well on a homeowner's yard, but may not work well in a park situation or on the side of the road or that sort of thing.
Yeah, that's a good point, and Dennis knows this, is that when, like, if the town were to buy any, like, a quantity of trees, if it's over a certain cost, I can't remember the exact cost, we have to ask for quotes, so, it's good to have an idea of who we can or who we ought to ask too.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's what we had to do when we bought a large quantity of trees,
Yeah.
particularly for like Outhouse and Blue Heron and Miller Park. We had to go out for bid,
Hmm.
and then who knows where the individual got their trees from? I'm not sure. So.
Yeah, I know of a lot of nurseries, Klein Nursery out in Ohio, and a few other, in Pennsylvania, very large nurseries that deal with that sort of thing. They freight on board, ship it to you. And what I would recommend is doing a combination. Of course, diversify. Don't buy all the same species of tree. As we know,
Yeah.
if we planted all ash now, we'd be in a bad situation. Yeah, so that sort of thing. But I don't know how that would be handled with a donation tree. Probably that would be from a local nursery.
So like, back to that sponsorship problem with the donation, or not problem, project.
Mhm.
What the Parks Committee did is, like, the town already bought all the benches. They're already all installed. And then the plaques come from whoever chooses to do the sponsorship. And then they put the plaque on the bench. The person gets to pick which park they want to do it at. And then they get the plaque. So, it could be something more along the lines of those. Like, maybe we already have trees in mind after we do this whole list, where we want to plant which species even, and have a list and say, well, we're going to plant this kind of tree in, these two parks, and we're going to have these other kinds of trees, and you can choose to sponsor one of them, but they don't get to pick, exactly where it goes or anything like that. So we
That's a-
can
That's a good
kind of
idea.
have a little bit of control based on what we know will grow where and how well it will grow, and then let people maybe do it that way. I mean, that might work. And I don't think the bench sponsorship has a huge draw. I think we've only had a handful, so I don't think we'd get tons of people coming in to do it, but might get a few.
Okay.
Would you
Yeah.
talk to Doug and Sam about the possibility of also adding trees along with the bench idea?
Yeah. Yeah, and I'll ask them how successful it's been with the benches, and because I mean, I think just something along the same lines would be easy enough.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think with benches, in my opinion, there's benches out in the open on a hot days, not something that people are attracted to, but maybe a bench under a grouping of trees. Maybe you kind of bring that together where they maybe sponsor the grouping of trees plus a little oasis within a park, grouping of trees plus the bench.
Mhm.
You bring it all together. So you're almost sponsoring islands in a sense.
Yeah.
You tie it in, I guess, what I'm saying.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's a good idea. There is a park in Livonia that I've been to a few times, and almost all their trees and benches have been sponsored by someone or donated by someone or paid for by someone. And like you said, there are certain areas in which there's kind of a garden that incorporates a number of those things. So it's a good idea.
Mhm.
Okay, good.
Anything else? So we'll generate something right now. Dan, you want to start that for us, if you would.
Okay.
And the rest of us can add on what we want or make suggestions or whatever.
Okay.
Superb.
Yeah. Sarah, what are the type of sites that need planting of trees in the town? What are we looking at? Just parks? Are we looking at roadsides? Are we looking, what are we looking at?
Probably mostly parks and maybe the cemeteries too, to start with.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think that was what they asked us first, was just to concentrate on the cemeteries and parks, and then eventually go to some of the other town
Because
facilities.
a lot of our roads are just rural, and they're either farms or woods along the side anyway. And then we don't have a ton of sidewalk. We do have some. So that might be something down the road that we could do too. But for now, I think it would mostly just be, parks and cemeteries.
I think we
Okay,
need to incorporate the town hall also, now that
Oh, yeah.
some of
Right.
those trees are going to need to be replaced.
Okay. So I'll limit the scope then to then parks and cemeteries and then the town hall. We're not going to go into anything that may be alongside roads, replanting along that, because there is a
No,
difference.
not yet.
Okay. All right. So that probably does have to be said, because that would change a lot of, in my opinion, a lot of the tree types that you'd use.
And the only other reason I say maybe we don't want to deal with road stuff yet is that just makes maintenance a little bit harder too. Our parks guys handle most of the stuff with the trees, as far as,
Okay.
if they need to be watered and mulched and stuff. And we've never ventured into roadside stuff before with them. I just don't, then we'd have to figure out, well, who's got to deal with it, and, stuff like
Oh,
that.
yeah.
And then there's always, I can hear Jim in my head, Jim Fletcher, our highway guy. There's utilities running along the sides of a lot of our roads underground. And so then he'd come back and say, well, you can't plant anything there. We've got water lines under there. So
Oh, sure. Yeah. And that's why knowing that makes a difference, because you wouldn't, you have the play with infrastructure, and you have to choose the right trees, of
Mhm.
course, for that. Yeah. But, you know, as the town grows and you get more of bedroom communities and you get roadsides and walks, like for Middle Cheshire, for instance, Jim put in a few years back, kind of a sidewalk. And then there were people that wanted to get the town to actually put more of a cement permanent sidewalk like you see inside the city. And so as the town grows, there may be people that are wanting more of that, you know, that tree lined walk areas.
Yeah, you know, we're working on a alternative transportation study along Middle Cheshire Road right now, and the outcome of that study is going to be recommendations for different road treatments, including some pathways like for bikes and people and whatnot along certain parts of Middle Cheshire Road. And then as it gets towards the city, I think there's recommendations for sidewalks. I mean, when the study's adopted, they're not going to be building it right away. That would be definitely a few years down the road. But if we get to the point where we actually start being able to build that stuff, by then, you know, we'll be able to hop in and say, hey, don't do the trees yet. We have ideas.
That sounds
But
good.
you're right. We will eventually grow into that need. It just
Not yet.
I don't think.
All right.
Anything else? Anything, Sarah, that's come up about grants or anything?
Tomorrow I have a phone call with DEC, and they're gonna give me some feedback on our urban forestry grant and kind of hopefully give us suggestions on what we could do to try and get it the next time they offer it. At least that's what I'm hoping. Why we didn't get it, and you know, do they think it's worth it for us to try again, and what would they suggest? Unfortunately, I couldn't get it scheduled before our meeting tonight, so it's going to be tomorrow. But whatever I find out, I'll send out in an email. Kind
Who
of a
are you
little.
talking to over there? Is it Mark
Hey.
Goodman?
No, it's Amy Naves, I think is her last name.
Okay.
She's just my grant contact for this grant. So it's just a debriefing call. I mean, I've had them before. They go through your questions. They tell you why you got points or why you didn't get points. And then they usually kind of give you general feedback. You know, this is a good project, but, or this wasn't a good project, try this instead.
I'm going to have to excuse myself. I have a meeting in town at 7 I must be at. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Edith.
Thank you, Edith.
You take care.
Thank you.
Anything else from anyone? All right, I guess we're going to be meeting on February 1st. All of you have a good holiday. Be nice if
too.
this weather
Yeah,
Weather
lots
extended
of
into
holidays between
December,
now
huh?
and then.
Okay,
Yeah, well, it seems like it might
Yeah.
last at least one more day.
that's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Take
Gary.
care.
Yeah, and so we'll keep in touch via email. I'll
Sounds
send
good.
out the summary for this, and then we can keep in touch over the other stuff as we go through the winter.
Thanks.
Okay,
Right.
sounds good.
So long.
Thank
Take care.
you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Dennis.
Bye, Sarah.